Hello everybody, welcome back to Planet X News, January 11th, 2018. Ladies and gentlemen, yesterday during our very early morning live stream, I talked about influenza and the flu, and I received, my goodness, several hundred emails pertaining to the flu, the influenza, as they call it, and also astragalus. And astragalus is an herb that I've been taking for, oh my goodness, probably about, maybe more than 20 years now. And we're going to get into the herb astragalus. But I want to go over some of this information pertaining to the flu. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is a $100 billion a year business worldwide. Now, understanding this doesn't have anything to do with Planet X or our solar system or the Earth, the Sun, the Moon, and the stars. But what this does have to do with is your health. And basically, complete disclosure. What is the flu, influenza? Where did it come from? Was it man-made? So many questions, ladies and gentlemen. You know, and one thing that I always try to grasp is the truth. And yes, I will dig, and I will dig deep. But let me give you a little bit of history on myself and the flu. When I was a younger man, in my early 20s, I worked for my father's advertising company, and I was constantly flying from city to city, sometimes 2-3 days a week. And I was constantly getting sick. Every time I would return off of a flight back to Miami, within 24 hours, I would be sick. And I would go to work, naturally. And I would get everyone else in the office sick. And at one point, my father's company had around 200 employees, and the flu ran rampant through our office for 3 months. 3 months. So imagine being around 200 people in an office, coughing, sneezing, hacking, just germs everywhere. Now, no matter what we did to try to disinfect the office, it just didn't work. Because influenza is a virus. And it's a lethal virus. It is also a very complex virus. And over the decades, it has become stronger and stronger and stronger. Not many people have delved into where did influenza come from? Where did it come from? You know, influenza, the flu, reminds me of the HIV virus. It also reminds me of cancer cells. So a lot of research has been done for many, many years, decades. And, you know, as I have poked around and I have researched, I have found that going all the way back to the mid 1900s. Say, for instance, around 1918 through 1950. Well, that's when, all of a sudden, the money issue came into play. Meaning, there were companies that were making elixirs to get rid of the cold or this influenza. Now, in 1918, this flu killed 50 million people. Some estimates take it to 100 million people worldwide. Now, that's pretty serious. But the more and more that I dug into this influenza, and I started researching it as a young man because I was sick and tired of being, inflicted with this flu bug. Folks, and it wasn't the common cold. I mean, I was a young man in my early 20s. I was in damn good shape, and I felt, wow, why am I constantly getting sick? I take care of myself. Why am I getting sick? So basically, flying on these airplanes, recirculated air, touching things, blah, 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 blah. I'm flying from city to city. And then later on in my career, I was flying to different countries, and I really started getting paranoid. So I started doing some research on things that I could take to influence and build my immune system. Because your immune system is basically your protection against fighting infection, bacteria, virus, so on and so forth. And through my research, I discovered an herb called astragalus. And I posted an article on the Planet X News website yesterday, and I just posted another article on Planet X News from the University of Maryland's Medical Center pertaining to astragalus. And what I found in 1997 was astragalus was already being researched. It was being researched heavily. What it was being researched for was the complications with AIDS, HIV, and also cancer research. And I read one complete report from the University of Berkeley, California, that just blew my mind. Literally just blew my mind. At the time, astragalus was really not available in the U.S. market. So I looked further and further to try to find this astragalus, and lo and behold, I had to order it. I got it from a European company. I started taking the astragalus, and I have not stopped, folks. I have not stopped taking astragalus since 1997. Now, I have not had the flu since then. I have been around people that were, they were sick with colds and the flu, and there were a few times that, I caught the beginning stages of this bug. Very, very mild. The symptoms only lasted for about 2 to 3 days, and then I felt completely normal. Now, getting into the billion-dollar business, well, let's just face it, folks. Influenza, the flu, they say every single year it comes out with a new strain. Well, how the hell is that possible? It's a virus. Okay, now they say it mutates, it mutates, it mutates. Well, look, I'm not one of these biological scientists and lab rats, but I find a lot of this very, very suspicious, and it seems like this has been going on for decades, a long time, worldwide. Who benefits from making all of us sick? Pharmaceutical companies, drug companies, companies that make over-the-counter medications, and the companies that make the flu vaccine. $1 billion, $100 billion, $50 billion. The drug companies have steadily profited from these outbreaks. Why does the flu come around every winter? Where does it come from? Where does it originate? These are big, big questions that really nobody knows until you start poking around. And if you know anything about holistic medicine, well, over the last 10 years maybe, there have been over 100 holistic doctors that have suspiciously died, murdered, or had some pretty extreme accident. Why is that? Why is it that we can transplant a human heart, a liver, lungs, but we cannot combat the AIDS virus or influenza or even cancer? So I started to dive into ancient Chinese medicine. Now, listen, folks, that's not a joke. Ancient Chinese medicine, well, it's been around for over 1,000 years. A lot of the holistic doctors have delved into ancient Chinese medicine. And then so did I. And I find it very, very suspicious that these holistic doctors are turning up dead. Still to this day. Just recently, I believe it was out in California, a husband and wife, two holistic doctors, both of them murdered in their California home. I believe the case is still open, and this was just recent. So, after I published a few of these articles, and I do have some friends locally here in the Pittsburgh area that read the information, and I got some phone calls yesterday, and I spoke with one of my friends, and she has 4 kids and a husband, and all of them are sick with the flu. So imagine having 4 kids and a husband, and you're babying all of them. And probably her husband more than the kids. Because, we have that thing called man flu. But anyways, I had mentioned to her, listen, at this point in time, do not take any chances with the flu involving your children, because I've been steadily watching what has been happening with this flu epidemic. Now, authorities from the CDC and health departments in the United States and around the world, blah, 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 they say that we are not at epidemic levels. Listen, folks, when people start dying and this influenza or flu starts to spread worldwide, I would consider it an epidemic. And if you pay attention and you look back every single stinking year, this happens. And it's usually towards the end of the year, the beginning of a new fiscal year in the bank books of all of the pharmaceutical companies and the drug companies and the over-the-counter medication companies. $100 billion a year. And what happens? You're still sick. They're still making billions of dollars. And every year there's a new strain. Does that make any sense to any of you? Because it doesn't make sense to me. Where did it come from? You know, science is still wide open on where influenza came from. They state in some reports it comes from Asia. It comes from pigs. It comes from birds. Okay, well, how did the birds get it? How did the pigs get it? I mean, let's be realistic here. So in 1918, you know, science was on the forefront of a lot of things. Is there a possibility that influenza did mutate from, you know, a virus that a pig had or a bird? You know, I don't really know. But all I know is that in modern times, we have seen the Spanish flu, the bird flu, the swine flu. Now they are numbering these strains of flu. And folks, listen, there's just not one or two or three. There is a whole list of them. Are they made in laboratories? Wow, there is a lot of evidence backing it up. And I'm going to show you some information about a very, very well-known politician, our own, at one time, Defense Secretary, Donald Rumsfeld, under the Bush administration, and his direct ties to the flu and the over-the-counter medication Tamiflu. Boy, oh boy, doesn't that sound politically incorrect? Well, listen, folks, a story, let me flip over here to my screen and get out of here. I'll share a story with you that came right out of Pittsburgh. And I mentioned this story yesterday. Give me 1 second. You know, in this story, this involves a 21-year-old man. His name was Kyler Bowman. And he was a physical fitness buffed out dude, as you can see from his picture here. Let me go ahead and scroll up a little bit. And this young man was headed home to enjoy the Christmas holiday with his family. And lo and behold, he wasn't feeling very good. And, you know, he had mentioned to his mom that, you know, he probably had a cold, blah, 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 blah. Well, this young man, 21 years old, well, he died. He died. And whenever I saw this story the other day on my local news station, WPXI, that kind of got to me a little bit there, because we've had a lot of deaths already here in southwestern Pennsylvania and throughout the whole entire state. And this has all been related to the flu. And it seems, once again, that it is affecting children young adults, and the elderly. So I guess if you're kind of like, in the middle in age, don't think that you're safe, because it can attack and kill you just as easily. I'll read a little bit of the article here, and it's very important, folks. It says the flu-related death of 21-year-old fitness buff from Pennsylvania is a chilling reminder that the virus can kill anyone. Kyler Bowman had a runny nose and a slight cough when he first went to visit his family for the holidays. His mother states that we saw him on the 23rd for our Christmas get-together, and we noticed that he wasn't feeling well, and his symptoms, runny nose, fever, cough, hard to breathe. And it says here, her son, a bodybuilder studying to become a personal trainer, soon developed a fever and felt symptoms worsening. A trip to the emergency room days later led Kyler being taken by helicopter to a larger hospital in downtown Pittsburgh, where he died 24 hours later. He died of organ failure due to septic shock caused by influenza, the flu. A very, very sad story. Very sad. There was also down here, it says here in Tennessee, a pregnant woman died from the flu. Folks, I just find it so hard to believe that in this day and time, with all of our medical breakthroughs and our technology, a 21-year-old physically fit young man dies within 24 hours of going to the hospital and dying from the flu. Actually had me pretty upset listening to the story. And I hate to see people suffer. And then late yesterday, another friend of mine gave me a call, and he said, hey, listen, is there any chance that you could stop by my house in the morning and let my dog out for a few minutes? I had to rush my mother to the hospital. She's come down with the flu. They immediately admitted her. And supposedly, as of right now, she'll be fine. She's going to be in the hospital for a couple of days. So, folks, it's hitting home with me very, very quickly as far as people that I know that are in danger. And each and every one of you listening right here, right now, well, you're kind of like an extension of me. We all may not know each other on a personal level, but, each and every one of you matter to me. So as I continue to dig up and dig up and dig up this information, we're all going to educate each other. And I would hope that each and every one of you take this information and spread it. Spread it worldwide, man, because that's what we need to do. So unfortunately, Kyler passed away after being life-flighted to a major university hospital in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh University hospitals, some of the best in the world. They couldn't even save him. They couldn't save this young man from the flu. Very terrible. Very, very sad. I want to take this opportunity real quick to play this interview. And, the young man had a fiance. He had plans. And he will never be able to fulfill those plans for his life. It's pretty sad. But let's go ahead and let's take a listen. I hope a commercial doesn't play. Oh, yep, there is one.
It's always been a lifelong dream for me to be my own business owner. What was attractive to me about the Allstate opportunity was that it created the platform for me.
So as soon as this ad plays, folks, we will go ahead and let the interview play. And what really breaks my heart is at the end, his statement from his father. So let's watch this.
Doesn't seem real.
21 years old, active, fit, and seemingly healthy.
And he was into physical fitness. He was going to school to be a personal trainer.
Kyler Bachman was working, going to school, and celebrating Christmas with his family.
We saw him the 23rd for our family Christmas get-together, and we noticed he wasn't feeling well. Looked like he was run down, and he had a bit of a snotty nose.
He celebrated with family again Christmas night and returned to work Tuesday, but he came home early because he wasn't feeling well.
He kind of just laid down and went about his day, and that was the day he was kind of coughing, and he said, "My chest hurts, I don't feel well." And he had like a mild cough.
Within 2 days, Kyler's health took a turn. He was running a fever on and off. On Wednesday, he went to Westmoreland's ER, then flown to UPMC Presby, where he died not even 24 hours later. His mom said it was from complications from the flu.
Organ failure due to septic shock caused by influenza.
The Bachmans are now left grieving a sudden and most unexpected loss. They're hoping by sharing Kyler's story, it could help save someone else.
Try and know your body. Don't let things go. You know, whenever you have fever and you have it multiple days, just don't let it go. Get it taken care of.
I just think he ignored it and thought, oh, it'll go away like most people. And I think people need to pay more attention to their bodies.
You know,
after
folks,
serving in the Army for...
After listening to the interview with the parents, his mom seemed to hold it together pretty well. But watching his father choked me up. People such as this young man at 21 years of age, they shouldn't be dying from the flu. Just an absolutely horrible, horrible story, especially around the holiday. And now, this family will forever remember their son's death when the holidays roll around. That just makes things even worse. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, there are ways to protect yourself against the flu, colds, viruses, things of that nature. Now, I have discovered a lot of articles pertaining to this flu epidemic. This was from ABC News. Where does the flu come from, and why are we susceptible to the flu every year? Now, I'm not going to go into this whole entire article because it is very, very lengthy. But I'm going to include this article in another article that I will post on the Planet X News website for all of you to read. And it goes into where scientists think or believe influenza originated. And it kind of goes into a little bit of a time scale. And it basically says, as far as the answer to the question, influenza is a virus that spreads from person to person. It originates actually among birds. Okay, here's another one of their scientific theories. Okay, it originates amongst birds and other animals such as pigs. And new viral strains of influenza come to this country and to Europe from Southeast Asia. But why does it originate in Southeast Asia? Why does it originate there? Big questions. No answers. We're now in the year of 2018, and medically, like I said, We could transplant hearts, we could transplant lungs and livers, but we cannot combat a virus known as influenza, another virus known as AIDS, and we still cannot combat cancer. But yet there are hundreds of holistic doctors that have done extensive research, and they're not here to speak because they are all freaking dead. So why are they dead? I'll tell you why. My thoughts is because that $100 billion a year industry would dwindle. Big pharmacy would start to lose. What's the first thing that happens when you go to the doctor? He gives you a prescription. What's the next thing that happens? You go to the pharmacy. What's the next thing that happens after you go to the pharmacy? You get home and you take the pill, you take the medication. Now, let's talk about all of the over-the-counter medications, all of the cough syrups, all of the pill forms. Do they really help, or do they just mask the problem? And you just keep on going through your day-to-day. And then you wonder why you don't get any better, because your body cannot fight the virus. The virus has become so strong within your body that your immune system just cannot battle it. So what is the key? And this is what I learned many, many years ago. And again, I have not had the flu since 1997, knock on wood. There are a lot of things that each and every one of you can do to prevent yourself from getting the flu. One of the biggest things is, folks, is paying attention to what's going on around you. Now, you know, if you live in a house when you have kids and the kids are going to school and they're coming in contact with other kids, or you work in an office, or you work around a lot of other people, or a retail store, or whatever, you're always going to be coming in contact with something. So the bottom line is boosting your immune system so your own body can help attack the virus or the bacteria on contact. And that's where we will get into the herb astragalus. And listen, folks, I'm not plugging any specific herbal company that sells astragalus. Now you can buy astragalus at, you know, any herb store, iHerb online, Walmart, Rite Aid, CVS, whatever herb store. Now, you do have to be very careful. You want to buy reputable brands, because it has been found that some of these other knockoff brands have just a little tiny bit of the herb in the capsules, and they use, no lie, sawdust as a filler. So, you know, getting a reputable brand that's 100% pure astragalus, you know, do your research. I'm not going to plug any brand here, but I get all of my stuff like this. I get it all from iHerb. And CVS pharmacies, I don't know about them, but GNC, the GNC vitamin stores, they do have a pretty good reputation with their products that they do sell. They do laboratory testing to make sure that the products meet their standards to be on the shelves in their stores. So I've been taking astragalus since 1997. It has a hell of a lot more benefits than just fighting the flu. And we'll get into all of those. But, you know, just so you all understand, folks, it's very weird to me that since the early 1900s, this has been happening, killing hundreds of millions of people. Now, those deaths have actually declined substantially, but ladies and gentlemen, any loss of a human life dealing with something, let's say, as minor as getting a cold or the flu, those numbers have dropped, but even losing one life is tragic. Like that young man, 21 years old. The young lady who was pregnant and died of the flu. Now, I'm not sure if they were able to save her child. I don't know how far along she was in her pregnancy. But again, very, very terrible circumstances. The outbreaks here in the United States have hit just about every single state, and they're all in the red as far as pretty close to epidemic. And yes, we see this every single year. To me, it's almost like the big grab for money. Let's get this flu moving along throughout the world for about 4 or 5 months. Let's get that money. Let's vaccinate everybody. Let's stick that needle in your arm. I've never had a flu shot in my entire life, and I will never, ever get a flu shot, because I don't know what's in that flu shot. And that leads into, vaccinations for children. Neither of my children were vaccinated. I refused. Both of my kids are healthy individuals, and they've never had any problems whatsoever. But folks, when it's dealing with your kids, hey, it's all up to you. But let's go ahead and move to this next article that I have here. And this was on a CNN report. And it says, alert, H1N1, which was one of the original strains of this influenza. States alert, H1N1 was created in a lab. Now, again, this is a very, very lengthy article. And it goes through an investigative timeline starting in the 1970s. And it talks a lot about the AIDS virus. And if you ask me, I do believe that the AIDS virus was mutated in a laboratory. There is a man out there, I don't even want to mention his scummy name, but, he admits that, he was one of the scientists on the forefront of inventing this AIDS virus. Pretty sickening. It goes on in the beginning of this article to state that even though many might not believe it, HIV was introduced as a hepatitis vaccine to the gay communities of San Francisco and New York in the late 1970s. The makers of the virus did not realize that bisexuals existed at the time. Therefore, the disease has spread like wildfire through the world, claiming the lives of millions and counting. Like I said, folks, nowadays we could transplant a heart, but we can't knock out the flu. Doesn't make sense, does it? As you get into this article, and I'm going to post all of this in one big article, and if you guys want to go ahead and read it and check it out and share it with other people, I think this sharing of this information helps others to gain more knowledge. And like I say, knowledge is power. This is the type of power that we need. This article goes into the conspiracy theory timeline. And, it gets really, really, really in depth with statistics and numbers. And, man, it starts dropping names left and right. Let me get to the part about Mr. Donald Rumsfeld. Where is that? Now, it goes in here. It goes into this timeline. And this timeline, I read every bit of this. And it actually made me sick. But here we go on October 31st, 2005. Donald Rumsfeld, growing steak in Tamiflu. Now, Tamiflu became one of the most popular over-the-counter medications for combating the flu. Defense Secretary, ex-chairman of Flu Treatment Rights Holder, sees portfolio value growing. Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld and other politically connected investors in Gilead Sciences, the California biotech company that owns the rights to Tamiflu, the influenza remedy that's now the most sought out drug in the world. Rumsfeld served as Gilead's Research's chairman from 1997 until he joined the Bush administration in 2001. He still holds a Gilead stake valued at between $5 million and $25 million, according to federal financial disclosures filed by Rumsfeld. Boy, oh boy, have we seen this before. You know, folks, and big pharmacy has everything to do with the government. They have the lobbyists in there. They need the favors. FDA, Federal Drug Administration. So, it doesn't help the pockets, the deep pockets of people like Donald Rumsfeld and other investors. It does not help them to see you not get sick. So how do you fight it? Ladies and gentlemen, I feel that over these decades, it seems to me like influenza has been used as a biological weapon to fill the pockets of people that are already super rich, and they're just getting richer as you keep getting more and more ill. And do you think they care if you die? Absolutely not. Because there are new human beings being born every single day. It's a new customer. You get where I'm coming from? This goes on and on and on to talk about how the United States denies producing biological weapons from bird flu samples. And then, oh boy, this gets real bad when you start going through this. It starts talking about how mutated samples of these influenza viruses just all of a sudden came up missing out of laboratories that were secured like Fort freaking Knox. But are you serious? Just comes up missing. This goes on and on and on and on through this timeline. It just keeps going. All the way through 2009. And that is when this article was actually published. Now, I was doing some more research into the 1918 influenza pandemic or epidemic that literally killed tens of millions of people. Estimates are from 50 to 100 million people died. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a lot of death over a virus. Now, taking into consideration, that was back in 1918. And the population has increased, and slowly the deaths have decreased. But my point is, ladies and gentlemen, we shouldn't have one death, because influenza shouldn't even exist. We should have the technology on the shelf to prevent influenza. And listen, folks, don't fall prey to the misconception that because you go get a flu shot, you're not going to get the flu. Because that's a damn lie. You can do what you want to do. You could go get your flu shot, but nobody's sticking a needle in my arm. No way. Now, this article here, once again, very, very lengthy. This is a legitimate report, an abstract, a medical registered article by the United States National Library of Medicine, National Institutes for Health. Okay, if you follow my cursor right here, these are the registered, this is the registered link for this article. This article goes into everything that you pretty much need to know if you are looking at the history of influenza and where scientists think it came from, all of the research going back all the way to 1918 when these reported cases started to pop up and millions of people started to die. I mean, this goes all the way back like to the plague in the 14th, 15th century. So again, people should not be dying of the flu. And why does it seem like it strikes children and young adults and older people? Is it because their immune systems are just not up to par? All I know is I've spent hours and hours and hours and researching building my immune system. Well, I've spent years on that. But I've never missed a beat taking the astragalus. And astragalus is and has been researched for cancer and AIDS and many, many other medical issues with outstanding results. But if you go to your medical doctor, what do you think he's going to prescribe? Astragalus? Now an inexpensive herb? Absolutely not. He's going to write you a prescription from a pharmaceutical company that he's getting kickbacks from. I have a very good friend of mine who works for Pfizer. And that's the, a drug company that makes, different pharmaceuticals, but well known for Viagra, the hard-on pill. She makes, over $150,000 a year pushing hard-on pills to the doctors. And the doctors push it right onto you. This article here, as you go through it and you read this, this will show you some of the extensive research that they tried to do in finding out where influenza came from. And they make a lot of, kind of accusations towards Asia, China, Vietnam. But why is everything originating in Asia? What, do they have more chickens? Do they have more birds? Do they have more pigs? That just doesn't make any sense. It's like they're using them as a scapegoat. And this has been going on for decades. So as you go on, and I read every single word of this medical journal report, and it's pretty lengthy. I'm going to zip all the way down here to the bottom real quick, and you can see the medical references to this article. So, it's just not something that, just popped up on the internet. This is an actual medical research registered paper. And here's the direct link to it. Here's the actual registered code right here. And this was published back in 2004 and revised twice. So again, folks, I am going to put all of this information into one article. And, if you want to go ahead and take some time and start doing the research yourself, I think it would be a good idea. Now, whenever you go ahead and you look up influenza, Wikipedia, you would think that this would be a pretty long and drawn out definition in the encyclopedia for influenza. But it's really not. It's really not. Something that we do want to go ahead and look at are the signs and the symptoms. Most definitely watching the fever. Anywhere from 100 to 103 degrees Fahrenheit in your fever, you're looking at some problems, especially when it starts floating past 102 to 103. But these symptoms of influenza, fever and chills, bad cough, nasal congestion or runny nose, sneezing, sore throat, hoarseness, inner ear pressure or an earache, muscle aches, fatigue, headache, irritated or watery eyes, redness of the eyes. It also says redness of the skin, especially around the face, mouth, throat, and nose. Rash. And in children, it could be a wide variety of these symptoms, also including diarrhea, vomiting, and abdominal pain. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to your kids, okay, or even the elderly, do not take chances. Now, I just watched a report that was on Fox News last night, and they are already stating that hospitals around the country and possibly around the world are running short on supplies, medical supplies to combat the rush of people into the emergency rooms. IV bags. In some of these hospitals, the shelves are empty. Did you just hear what I said? Hospitals here in the United States are reporting depletion of their supplies to fight and help people that are coming in devastated by influenza. An IV bag? Fluids? Well, where's the pharmaceutical companies now? Why should a hospital, why should their supply of IV bags be so depleted that when they showed the cameraman the supply room, the shelves were bone dry empty? No IVs. How in the hell can a hospital run without IVs? Are we being exterminated? every single year? Are they taking away our loved ones for money? Population control? It's not that much of a population control anymore, ladies and gentlemen. You know, we're not seeing 50 to 100 million people die, but what we are seeing is we are seeing people getting astronomically wealthy over the fact that science cannot beat the flu. Hell. Let's take a look at the influenza virus strains. So we start off with one, and now here we are in 2018. What do we have, like 10 of them? 10 different strains? Nothing seems to work? Give me a break. H1N1, which caused the Spanish flu in 1918 and the swine flu in 2009. H2N2, which caused the Asian flu in 1957. H3N2, which caused the Hong Kong flu in 1968. H5N1, which caused the bird flu in 2004. H7N7, H1N2. This was an endemic in humans, pigs, and birdies. H9N2, H7N2, H7N3, H10N7, H7N9. What the hell is going on? Ladies and gentlemen, do you see the connection that I'm trying to make? Why is it that science cannot kick the butt of influenza? Do they want to? Or do they just want to keep it around? Keep it around so they can continue to quietly make billions of dollars and claim they are saving lives and they are helping people. Yeah, I don't think so. So, you know, if you go to Wikipedia and you look up influenza, and you can go ahead and start researching this and taking a look at it, and you can see, especially when you look at the mechanism, the transmission mechanism, then you look at the pathology of how H1N1 and H5N1 really can be fatal. So H1N1 easily spreads but rarely fatal. Ooh, that wasn't good enough. So we had to mutate it. So they mutate it to H5N1, spreads slowly, often fatal. Wow. And then here we go with the big push for the vaccination, listed under prevention. Ladies and gentlemen, let's be realistic here. Your body is like a machine. Your body has the ability to fight bacteria and fight viruses and fight illness. So maintaining your immune system is the key factor. Does the vaccine increase your immune system? No, it does not. Your immune system needs to be up to par, working like a well-oiled machine in order to fight any bacteria or viral infection or virus. That's why holistic doctors and herbalists, they don't want you talking to them. The medical industry does not want to give them the notoriety and the attention that they deserve. So what do? When one of these herbalists or these holistic doctors is on the forefront of exposing something, what do? They suspiciously die. And I'm not making that up. I'm not. It's out there, man. It has been out there for years. And the deaths of these holistic doctors continues. Again, a husband and wife medical team, holistic doctors, murdered in their own house in California. Those were the last 2 deaths of holistic doctors. And it just doesn't happen in this country. It happens worldwide. So once again, folks, we are in the battle for truth. We are in the battle of not being exterminated by big pharmacy, by government, by the medical community. I mean, it has really become very sickening to see what is happening in this world. We have so many problems. And I believe a lot of these problems can be easily handled and cured. Why do we have people in this world starving to death? If you go look in the garbage can at any Burger King, McDonald's, Wendy's, Kentucky Funk Chicken, any fast food restaurant, just look at the garbage. Look at the amount of food that people just throw away. But yet we have millions and millions of people dying of hunger. Children especially. These abuses to humanity somehow, some way, someday, it all has to stop. Will we see it in our lifetimes? I doubt it. I doubt it. And that's very sad. Still to this day, in this day and time, we have people who are homeless, who are dying on the streets. You know, ladies and gentlemen, when I lived in South Florida, I lived there for 22 years. I lived in North Miami Beach, and wasn't too far up the road was a smaller community, Hollywood, Florida, and then Fort Lauderdale. Just a hop, skip, and a jump. Very, very large homeless community in Hollywood, Florida, and Fort Lauderdale. Do you know that it is against the law to feed homeless people in Broward County? That's right. You might have heard this before. It is illegal, and you will be arrested if you bring food and give it to another human being. I mean, that's got to be one of the stupidest laws I've ever heard of. And if I want to step up to you and I want to give you food from the kindness of my heart, how in the hell is that illegal? I bought it with my own money. I should be able to do with it what I want. But yet, We don't care about the drug addiction epidemic blazing around the world with heroin and pain pills. But what do we do for those people suffering from addiction? We give them another addictive drug from a pharmacy, from a pharmaceutical damn company, Suboxone, to replace heroin. Who's making the money? Once again, Big Pharma. You know, ladies and gentlemen, I get pretty heated about some of these topics. When I was a young man, I went to the University of Miami, and every single day I would drive down to the Coral Gables area. I would attend my classes, and, you know, coming out of the rich community of Coral Gables, I would see a lot of homeless people. And, you know, I decided when I was 24 years old that on Thanksgiving Day, I wanted to do something different than sitting down to a Thanksgiving dinner. And I started volunteering every holiday to volunteer and go down to the homeless shelter and work in the kitchen, cooking the meals for people that were just not as fortunate as I was. And yeah, I had a rich daddy, and my dad thought that I was a complete idiot for doing something like that. But I did it every single year. I went down and I worked in the kitchen, because I'm a pretty damn good cook and I know my way around the kitchen. And I worked and I served those meals to those people who were not as fortunate as me. So now we move into all of these years later, and it is illegal to feed the homeless. What in the hell happened to society? We can't cure the flu, but we can replace your heart. We can't cure the flu, but we could give you new breasts. Now they're doing face transplants for people who were maimed. Okay, that's cool, but we can't cure the flu. Why? Big Pharma, baby. Because it takes money out of the pockets of politicians, lobbyists, and big corporations. And that's sad. You know, the same thing applies when we talk about Planet X and what's happening with our planet and the deception. See, folks, they don't want you to know. They don't want you to know all of these things. They want to dumb you down like an animal. But who are they? It's almost like these big corporations and government have a God complex, and they want to play God. It's just damn wrong. At least in my eyes. I can't speak for any of you. It's the way I feel. And each and every day, whenever I wake up, and I don't get much sleep, 3-4 hours a day, but my body is always on overdrive. And like I said, I have not stopped taking astragalus. And we're going to go ahead and get into astragalus right here. Let's bring this up a little bit. And this is coming from the University of Maryland's Medical Center. So, you know, this is not just some joke coming from an herbal company that wants to, you know, sell you an herb. This is a very, very good article. And again, 1, 2, 3, University of Maryland Medical Center. The University of Maryland has done a lot of research on astragalus. So let's get into the overview real quick. And again, folks, I'm going to publish all of this in one big article. And whenever you have the time, read it, bookmark it, and gain that knowledge to help yourself and your family. Overview. Astragalus has been used in traditional Chinese medicine for thousands of years. It was often combined with other herbs to strengthen the body against disease. Now it goes on to start talking about the different ways that it protects the body. And it says it helps protect the body against various stresses, including physical, mental, and emotional stress. So, let's just take a look at that. Okay, my mother was a psychologist and a professor of psychology. My mother was totally against drugs unless she was dealing with extreme circumstances. But what happens now when you feel depressed and you go to the doctor? What does he do? He reaches in his little lab coat and he pulls out that little prescription pad and he says, "Okay, Bob, I'm going to put you on an antidepressant." Pharmacy. Big pharma. My mother was absolutely, totally against antidepressants because they change the chemical balance in your brain. And again, each case is different. But these doctors, they're pill pushers. That's it. You ever go to the doctor and he doesn't even touch you? He doesn't even examine you? Boy, he just sits there and he writes out the prescription. Boom! It's like writing out a paycheck, man. Now, don't even get me started about antidepressants because I'll keep all of you here for like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. Because my mom wrote many, many papers on this antidepressant craze that has just went rampant, especially here in the United States. Astragalus may help protect the body from diseases such as cancer and diabetes. Whoa! Back the truck up. Two big areas that big pharma makes billions. Cancer, diabetes. How many of you out there know someone who's diabetic? Raise your hand, please. My mother was diabetic. My sister is diabetic. My grandmother was diabetic. Does it run in, your genes? Possibly. My mother never took one damn pill or anything for her diabetes. She changed her diet and basically completely cured herself. My grandmother came to live with me for several years, and I changed my grandmother's diet. And next thing you know, within 3 months, my grandmother stopped taking her diabetic medicine because all of her tests and blood work started to change. Let's move on into the astragalus. Astragalus contains antioxidants, which protect the cells against damage. The cells in your body. Astragalus is used to protect and support the immune system, preventing colds and upper respiratory infections, lowering blood pressure, treating diabetes, and protecting the liver. Astragalus has antibacterial and anti-inflammatory properties. My grandmother suffered severely from rheumatoid arthritis. My grandmother would come down and visit me in January, February, and March for 3 months. Every single year she would come down from Pennsylvania, spend 3 months with me in Miami. In 1998, I started my grandmother on astragalus every day. In 6 months, my grandmother was not taking pain pills because she was hooked on Percocet and Vicodin because that's all that her doctor gave her for her arthritis. My little grandmother was addicted to pain pills. My grandmother would take 3 Percocets, put them on her tongue, and let them melt. After 6 months of my grandmother being on astragalus, all of the inflammation in her joints, her knees, her hands, her elbows, her hips was gone. 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 So why don't they want you seeking out alternative medicine? Because alternative medicine takes money out of the pockets of the big pharmacies. Where do lobbyists for big pharmacy companies, where do they go? Lobbyists for big pharmacy are in Washington, D.C. Who's in Washington, D.C.? The government. Who secretly invests through shell corporations into pharmaceutical stocks? Politicians. Yeah. Who's your daddy now? Some of the medical uses for astragalus: anemia, colds, influenza, diabetes, fatigue, lack of appetite after chemotherapy. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I had an uncle who actually worked for a military contractor who manufactured the Tomahawk missile at the time. And my uncle was an inspector, blah, blah, blah. He came constantly in contact with beryllium in the form of a dust. He contracted this just a very, very horrible, rare cancer in his neck. They had to remove his tongue. He went through multiple operations. They didn't give him too much time to live. He was going through all kinds of chemotherapy. And I was watching my uncle die. And the guy was in great shape. 52 years old. Didn't have a gray hair on his head. But, he was stricken down by this cancer. The chemotherapy was just brutalizing him because the chemotherapy destroys your immune system. In 1999, I flew up to the Washington, D.C. area to visit my uncle and aunt before I went up to Pittsburgh to visit the rest of my family. And I saw my uncle laying on the floor in the living room with a feeding tube stuck in him. And he was laying on the floor holding the bag of feeding fluid, feeding himself because they cut his tongue out. The chemotherapy was killing him. No appetite. He could barely, choke down through the inside of his gut, that bag. I had sat both of them down and I talked to my aunt about astragalus. But unfortunately, it was too late. And 3 weeks later, my uncle passed away. he actually took his own life. They were giving him vials of morphine, and in order for, as a painkiller, he would take a few drops of the morphine and literally put it under his tongue. And he just decided that it was too much for him to bear, and he was watching my aunt bear the struggle of taking care of him. So he wrote her a note, and he put it somewhere where she would see it later on. And he opened up his nightstand, and he pulled out the little vial of morphine, and he drank the whole vial, and he quietly went to sleep forever. But there were alternatives for my uncle, and there were alternatives for many, many others. Some of the other benefits for astragalus: it helps with heart disease. What's one of the number one killers? Heart disease. Why don't they want you seeking alternative therapies? Big pharma, baby. Big pharma. Hepatitis. Kidney disease. Once again, what would all of these dialysis clinics, what would they do if they didn't have any patients? Seasonal allergies, which I suffer from. My astragalus does a pretty damn good job, although my allergies do get to me a little bit. Cancer. Preliminary studies suggest astragalus may have anti-tumor effects, specifically against melanoma and leukemia. Oh my God. Ladies and gentlemen, do all of you see my broad point? And once again, this has nothing to do with our solar system, our sun, Planet X, space. But this has everything to do with saving your life. Have you noticed how the life expectancy was lowered once again? In 2017, the life expectancy was lowered again. But don't you think that people in this day and age should be living longer? They're not. Opioids, pain pills, heroin addiction, leading killer of people in my area, all 4 counties, each and every year, they break a record for overdose deaths. And now the governor of Pennsylvania, who's a freaking multi-millionaire, all of a sudden he goes out a few days ago and he declares an opioid epidemic in Pennsylvania. What the? Wait a minute. This has been going on for many, 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 many years. Why all of a sudden are you declaring this an epidemic? I'll tell you why. Because of Big Pharma. Who makes Suboxone? That's what they give them. People claim that addiction is a disease. I beg to differ on that. I beg to differ, but that's just my opinion. Over the years, I have had numerous friends drop dead from drug addiction, and I have had friends who watched their teenage and young adult children die of drug overdoses. It is rampant worldwide. But the answer to the drug addiction is to give these people another drug, which is just as addictive. We as a people need to stop allowing the New World Order, the powers that be. We need to stop allowing them to beat us down. We need to become stronger in our minds, stronger in our hearts and our souls. Remember, folks, they don't want you to become more intelligent. They don't want you to rise above. Because when you rise above, the clouds separate and you can see blue sky. Meaning you can see the answers that are out there. The topic that we covered here today disgusts me. Seeing that young 21-year-old man in peak physical condition, dying within 48 hours, 24 hours later after going to the hospital in a life flight helicopter to a huge university hospital in Pittsburgh, one of the best in this country. They couldn't save this young man who had everything to look forward to in his life. And it was robbed from him, and his presence in life was robbed from his family. When I watched that story on my local news, because that originated here in the city of Pittsburgh, that really choked me up. And then, after getting over my emotional state of watching that young man's father, I got so angry. I got so mad. We could replace a human heart, but we can't stop the flu? And now, once again, we're faced with a worldwide epidemic. And where does everybody run to? The emergency rooms, their doctor, the pharmacy. And what are you doing, folks? What are you doing? You're spending money. They make you sick, so you spend your cash. You give it right back. So we need to make ourselves healthier. Now, look, I'm not talking about, going out there and becoming a vegetarian or a vegan. I don't have any problems with that. Eat what you want, do what you want, smoke what you want, whatever. But tackling your immune system, keeping your immune system boosted, all it takes is one capsule a day, maybe some research on your end, and common sense. We know that this damn influenza is passed by contact. People are so damn ignorant nowadays. They'll cough right in your face. you know, people are blowing their noses, and you know, it's just all over the place. Keeping your hands clean is number one. If all of a sudden you see somebody coughing and hacking, get away from them. Far away from them. You know, when you work in an office or a tight place where there's people, listen, and you see someone that's sick, you know, maybe you got to step up and say something to management. Hey, listen, Bob over there is sick as hell, man. Give him a couple of days off. Don't let him worry about his job because he's sick, but he's getting all of us sick. Your kids in school. Do you think the school cares if you send your kid to school sick to infect other children? No, they don't care. Why? Because they're all getting paid and they know there's probably nothing they could do about it. But one thing that we instituted with my dad's company, and this was because of me, and me sick and tired of being sick with the flu, I told my father, I said, listen, man, we got 200 employees. I am sick and tired every single year of this running through our office with 3 months. We need a policy. And that policy is, listen, if you get sick, you feel the first signs of getting sick, call in, let us know what's happening, and we'll give you 3 to 5 to 7 days off. You don't have to worry about your job because you've gotten sick. But that's what people worry about because they have to go to work because they need that money. And we instituted that policy within our company, and it worked beautifully. It worked beautifully. So, using common sense, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to, you know, coming in contact with people coughing and touching things. Listen, folks, you know, I'm not a germophobic, but whenever I go to Walmart or a department store and I'm going to use a shopping cart, I wipe the handle off with an antibacterial cloth. They have them at Walmart now, right where you get your shopping cart. I don't, you know, touch anything other than the products that are on the shelves. And I don't touch my face. Don't touch your eyes. Don't pick your nose. And keep your fingers away from your mouth until your hands are properly washed. Folks, do this with your kids. Start training these little ones to constantly wash your hands, especially when you see the first signs of people getting sick. One life lost because of the flu is one life too many. We have the opportunity to nip it in the butt. Common sense. Common sense. The minute I leave Walmart, ugh, God, man. I get in my car. I have a pretty good antibacterial hand gel, and I use it. I don't stick my hands anywhere near my face. I sure as hell don't stick them in my mouth. But, you know, even scratching your upper lip with an infected finger that maybe you touch somebody or, you know, somebody sneezed all over the shopping cart handle. You don't know about it. You stick your hand in there and then you scratch your upper lip right below your nose. And what do? You transfer that influenza bacteria right where it wants to go into the warm area of your nasal passage and right into your lungs. Common sense, folks. Let's start spreading the word. Get your kids Get your kids involved, because you know your kids hate being sick, and you know damn well that when your kids get sick in school, they bring it home, and who do they give it to? Mommy and Daddy. And who usually has to take care of everybody? Mommy. Because men get that thing, they don't just get the flu, they get that thing called the man flu. But folks, I wanted to bring this information to you because I'm passionate about it. I think the information will help everybody who's listening. And take it for what it is. You know, hey, we as human beings, we are targets on our own planet. We have to fight back. One of the ways we could fight back is becoming smarter. Smarter to the system that keeps us down, that dumbs us down. And speaking about being dumbed down, yesterday, the temperature started heating up. The sun came out, or whatever the hell that thing is in the sky. Immediately upon that sun coming out, the chemtrail planes came out. And I was really freaked out this time because I've been following and investigating chemtrails since 2005. Facebook kicked me off of their platform in 2007. They deleted my Facebook page because I was exposing chemtrails. Or was that that was 2009. They kicked me off of Facebook. But yesterday, I look up into my skies, and all of a sudden, the checkerboard patterns came out. You know, and I go back and forth with some people on this chemtrail stuff. We all know it's happening. So there's another deception, folks, but I took some incredible, damning photographs of the sky. Later on this morning, I'm going to do another live stream, and I'm going to share all of that with you. And not only did I capture some chemtrails that looked super suspicious in their checkerboard pattern, but I also caught some very odd shapes, such as spheres, squares, and diamond-shaped objects. So, since when do we have 90-degree angled clouds? Yeah, buddy. So I'm going to go ahead and disclose all of that probably later on this morning. And for all of you that don't believe that our skies are being sprayed, wake up, smell the coffee, get out there, take some photographs, drop them into the Planet X News Facebook page, send them in to me, I'll take a look at them, examine your photographs very carefully on your home computer, take a look around, zoom in, look all over the place. You will be surprised at what you find. And I'm going to share some of those photographs with everybody later on this morning. And, you know, once again, folks, I hope that each and every one of you were able to take something away from this live stream. If you want to get out there and you want to get yourself some astragalus and you want to start healing your body and giving your body a chance to build its immune system, get the astragalus, follow the directions, read about it, because there are some minor interactions with other medications. If you're taking low blood pressure medication or high blood pressure medication, read up on it. If you have other medical problems and you're taking other prescription drugs, but there's very, very few other prescription medication interactions with astragalus. More benefits than harm. Very, very little harm. After you're on the astragalus every day for about a month or so, you will start to see the difference. And something else that I recommend for all of you hard thinkers, pick yourself up some ginkgo biloba. I take ginkgo every single day along with my astragalus. Ginkgo's a very, very good herb. Sends a lot of extra blood flow to your organs and especially your brain. But folks, once again, I hope that you obtained some good information from this morning broadcast on Planet X News. Great information. Once again, I'm going to put it all together, one big article. I'll publicize it on the Planet X News Facebook page. Pass it around. Share it with your friends. Share it with your family members. But most of all, use the information for yourself. Boost your immune system. Don't be a victim of this big pharma. Don't be a victim of influenza. That's the bottom line. Ladies and gentlemen, watch out for the weather this upcoming weekend, next few days. Some places going to be really warm, but the bottom's going to drop out and very, very treacherous situations are going to arise from the mid part of the United States going all the way across the upper northeast. Once again, we'll get into all of the weather-related information later on this afternoon. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for being here with me this morning. Take care of yourselves. Be very, very safe out there on the road. Watch the weather and make sure you stay tuned to Planet X News. God bless all of you. Take care.